Hello and welcome back to SnowRunner, y'all. Now in this video, we're going to be talking about the 5 reasons why I think SnowRunner is still worth playing in 2024, and especially if you're a new player that has never dived into this game before, I think you'll actually gain a lot from diving into this game, even though it's, I guess, technically a little bit old now. And reason number 1 is honestly really simple, and this applies mainly to people that have never played the game before, but it could still apply even if you have like a little bit of time in the game, and that is the sheer amount of content that this game has available at this point. Because if you look at the amount of DLC this game has now, even aside from all of the hours that you'll get out of the base game and the base maps, I mean, you're looking at hours upon hours upon hours of honestly fun and enjoyable content. Now, will that content eventually get a little old? Possibly. Now, even if it does get a little bit old, you're still going to be able to come back to it and still find those experiences that you enjoyed previously. So number 1, I would definitely say, or rather my number 1 point is there's a lot of content available here. And if you are just getting into this game, or maybe you got it as a present over the holidays, now is a better time than ever to jump in and start a new adventure. And reason number 2 to get into SnowRunner in 2024, or rather, especially why it's worth getting into in 2024, especially for new players, is the entire modding community. Because the modding community in this game is still huge, although it's definitely a little bit less, there are less new mods being released than there were, let's say, a couple of years ago. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't a bunch of wonderful mods that you can still use on almost every console. Now, you'll obviously have to include a little bit of an exception for Nintendo Switch, although I would say that if you're just getting into this game, about 75 to 80% of the mods that you will see on your console mod browser, for example, mods that you will see on Xbox and PlayStation consoles, I would say about 75 or 80% of those mods are going to be available on the Nintendo Switch. So if the Switch is the only system you have access to, or just so happens to be the system that you got the game for, not really knowing either way, you'll still have a decent library of mods to choose from, like the ones I'll put on the screen right now, which are available on Switch. And these are, of course, not the only mods that are available on Switch. These are just the ones that were the top trending when this video was recorded. And I only say that just to make sure y'all are aware that if your Switch mods, especially if you sort by trending, look a little bit different than that, that's why. So just as a little bit of a disclaimer. And now let's get to reason number 3 why I believe SnowRunner is still worth playing or worth getting into in 2024. And that is because, and this is a little bit subjective, and feel free to skip over this part of the video if you don't necessarily agree or this is not something you really care about. But if you are looking for a game that you can relax into and just allow yourself to spend time within a world doing little tasks here and there, but honestly not having to think about all that much, this is a really good game for that type of experience. And I say that because if you're someone that's looking for not necessarily a escape experience, but an experience where you want a little bit more engagement with off-road elements than something like American Truck Simulator could give you, but at the same time, you also want something that is casual enough that you don't always have to spend 1, 2, 3 hours at a time in order to get some kind of fulfillment out of playing it. This is a really good in-between for that type of experience. And yes, you will have people that are very into more hardcore simulations say that this is not a simulation, that this is solely an arcade experience. And honestly, I feel as though this game slots into almost that simcade category that we've talked about a few times on the channel not too long ago. And the beauty of being in that category is that it gives you, as a player, a lot of flexibility in how you enjoy the game. So as you're making your way through it, you might want to take on a massive task or a massive contract that would require, putting in 1 or 2 hours. But if you only have like 20 or 30 minutes to play the game for, you can just boot it up and get some of the little tasks, the little busy work tasks out of the way. And of course, whether or not all of that is important to you is all your own decision, and it's all down to how you like to actually enjoy your games. So it all goes back to that element of it all being subjective. However, if you've never played the game before, I do think it's still worth giving a try, especially at this point if it's on sale in your region or on your system. And now let's get into reason number 4. And reason number 4 why I still believe SnowRunner is worth playing in 2024 is because it still offers an experience that nothing else really does. Now, I know that there's going to be people that will say, well, you could get the same experience and better from, say, for example, BeamNG Drive, but there's a lot of problems with that. Chief among them being the fact that if you don't have a gaming PC, you're not playing BeamNG Drive. So that's kind of like, that disqualifies a huge amount of interested players right there. And also, a lot of people just want to jump in and do missions in their favorite trucks, and they're not necessarily as invested in the physics-based experience of something like BeamNG Drive. And you're also not going to get a game with this many usable console mods really in the same category either. Now, obviously, Farming Simulator does offer a pretty wide selection of console modding. However, the issue that I think a lot of people run into with Farming Simulator is, for better or worse, very much so dedicated to its, defined niche. Farming Simulator is a farming simulator. Shocking surprise, right? And with that, you're not necessarily going to be going out and rescuing vehicles. You're not going to be exploring giant, wide open off-road landscapes. You're not going to be doing as much cargo hauling you are going to be doing in Farming Simulator, but it's going to be a very different type of cargo hauling and a different type of focus on the way that cargo is handled and treated. And there are other games on console that do offer mod support. However, none of them really do it in the same fashion as SnowRunner does. And I think it did a really good job of implementing it. And while obviously there are parts of the community that are still not happy with how modding was integrated with consoles for this game, I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing that they did it. I do think they could have executed it a little bit better from the perspective of what the developers did and the systems that they used. But I think for all intents and purposes, they do have a pretty decent system on their hands. And now it's time to get to the 5th reason why I believe SnowRunner is still worth playing in 2024 or worth getting into as a new player in 2024. And that 5th reason is that it is just accessible enough for having the amount of depth that it does, because a lot of other games that are in this similar niche they're a lot less accessible for players that don't necessarily want to commit tons and tons of hours to them. You can learn this game very quickly, and that I think is a major advantage to it. Because while a lot of simulator players are totally willing to put hours upon hours into learning the processes that go into playing a game, there are a lot of people that don't have that much time, and so they need a little bit more accessible of an experience, and I think that SnowRunner does a really good job of offering that. And now finally, we are going to finish with a couple of gripes that I have with the game that you should be aware of, especially if you're getting into it as a new player this year. One of them is if you are on Xbox. As of the date of recording this video, Xbox multiplayer issues have still not been fixed, so do keep your eyes open for more info about that in the coming months. Another reason why you may not want to get into SnowRunner right now is because the next game in the series, which is a spin-off called Expeditions, a MudRunner game, will be released a little bit later this spring. So if you're wanting to get into an experience that is brand new, you may just want to wait for the release of Expeditions. But with all of that being said and done, I hope y'all are able to make, or rather feel like you're able to make an educated decision, or maybe just a little bit more of an educated decision than before as to whether or not you want to get into SnowRunner this year. So if you're new to the game and you enjoyed this video, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. And if you're new around here and you would like to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn those notifications on, and I will see y'all next time.